separate entities is an absolute baseless deception. It's kind of like saying hadith is a different way, fiqh is a different way. I follow hadith. Therefore, the ignorant claim made by many that Sharia and Tariqah are completely separate entities is an absolute baseless deception. Right? Some say that they're doing dancing and they're singing qawali, and then they say, Bhaijan, this is Tariqah. You can't make ishkal. You can't object against us because we follow Tariqah. They've made Tariqah into a complete different religion. This is unacceptable. This was not accepted according to any of our akabir. Imam Junaid rahmatullah alayhi was Sayyid al-Ta'ifa of Tasawwuf. He says, this tariq and this path of ours, right, is treaded through the way of sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This way of ours is treaded by the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And all the doors to Allah is closed except to the gateway of Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Some of the mashayikh, other mashayikh say, this is from, I think, Hazrat Shibli, or I think it's also Hazrat Junaid Baghdadi, the original Sufi. Original mashayikh, Salaf Salihin, Ahl Tasawwuf. He says, I have a lot of waridat that come inside of my heart. A lot of waridat, like thoughts, and a lot of inspirations that come into my heart. He says, but I do not accept any of those thoughts until I have two gawah, two shahidain. Shahidain adlain. And what is that? Kitabullah wa sunnatu Rasulillah. Any thought or any warid or any inspiration that comes to my mind, I first check it with the Quran and with the Sunnah. If it goes in accordance with the Quran and Sunnah, I accept that thought and that inspiration. Otherwise, I reject it. These were the Sufis of the Salaf. That when a thought or a idea or anything would come in his mind, they would immediately judge it, and they would immediately present it in the court of Quran and Sunnah. If it was accepted in the court of Quran and Sunnah, then they would take that view. Otherwise, they would completely reject it. Although this may be surmised from the statements of few of the awliya, the true meaning of those statements is not what the ignorant ones purport them to be. The correct meaning of such statements about Sharia and Tariqah being separate is that they are two separate branches of the same entity. For example, Salat and Saum are two separate acts that belong to the same entity, and that is worship. So to say, no, I pray namaz, I don't do fasting. We are the people of namaz, we're not the people of fasting. How can you say that? That is also an ibadat which is binding on you. This is also an ibadat which is binding on you. Tazkiyah is also an ibadat which is binding on you. It's ibadat batina, internal. Thus, the separation between Shariat and Tariqat does not mean that they are mutually exclusive, as is ignorantly asserted. Such assertions are devious fallacies. It is on this invalid basis that some ignoramuses claim that certain acts that are unlawful, haram according to Sharia, are actual lawful according to Tariqah. We seek refuge in Allah from such deviation. The music in Shariat is haram, but in Tariqat is jaiz. In Shariat is haram, but in Tariqah it's all jaiz. This is also ignorance. It's unacceptable. To explain the distinction between Shariat and Tariqat, it may be said that Shariat is the branch of deen that deals with the external aspects, zahiri. This is Shariat. And Tariqat is that branch of deen that deals with the batini. So Shariat is the external branches of deen. Salat, Saum, Zakat, Hajj. And Tariqat is the things that deals with sabr, shukr, rida, and hubbullah, and hubbu rasulihi, and all of the other things, and zuhud, and taqwa. All the internal things, this is what Tariqah deals with. Rather, they are two parts of the same body that deal with different subject matters, and that is the external and the internal. How beautifully Hazrat mentioned this. That was Hidayat number 5. Hidayat number 6. Hidayat number 6 we're going to skip. Hidayat number 6 is the regimen. Hidayat number 6 is the regimen. And I just wanted to mention that Hazrat Thanvi Rahmatullah alayhi here, he mentions 4 regimens. He says, the layman responsibility, family responsibility. And the layman who does not have family responsibility. The alim who has responsibility, and the alim who doesn't have responsibility. So there's 4 of them. Layman who has responsibility of family and ma'ash and life and sustenance and livelihood. Busy man. Let's say busy man. Right? In America, everybody's busy. So number 1, person, ami, who is busy. General layman who is busy. Number 2, general layman who is not busy. One is alim who is busy, and number 4, alim who is not busy. For each one of them, Hazrat Thanvi Rahmatullah alayhi gave a khas ma'mulat. And the point that I wanted to make, especially for the young ulama that are sitting here, ajibu gharib, you would think that Hazrat Thanvi would say that the ulama that are busy, they should not have a lot of ma'mulat because they're doing khidmat of deen. On the opposite, Hazrat gave them 10,000 times la ilaha illallah. He gave them more than that alim who is not doing anything. Why? Why? Hazrat Shaykh Zakaria Rahmatullah alayhi also mentioned, he said that that alim and that person who is doing khidmat of deen, he is so much in danger of riyah, in danger of jealousy, in danger of being involved in dunya, in danger of reputation, in danger of hubb dunya, in danger of hubb jah, in danger of hubb mal. What happens? This person must make more dhikr in order to make himself immune of all of the sicknesses that might catch him. Like imagine if you're a firefighter, you have to do more exercise or less exercise. If you're a firefighter, if you're a policeman, you're doing khidmat. A policeman, he has to be trained. He has to be strong because he will be faced with a situation that he has to be stronger than the normal people. Like if we say, okay, who has to do more exercise? A policeman who is on the duty all the time, or a policeman who's not on duty? What's the answer? On the duty. The policeman who's on the duty, he has to do more exercise because he's faced with situations that he has to protect himself. He has to protect other people. Similarly, the training and the workout of the alim of deen is the zikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And a beautiful example of that is Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Allah ta'ala said about him, Inna laka fin nahari sabahan tawila. O Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, in the day you have a long swim amongst the people. وَاذْكُرِ اسْمَ رَبِّكَ وَتَبَتَّلْ إِلَيْهِ تَبْتِيلًا. Allah is commanding, Allah is making tarbiyat of Sayyidina Rasulullah. Anyone who is, we say, we're warathatul anbiya. MashaAllah, we're ulama, warathatul anbiya. You're warathatul anbiya in what? The izzat that you get from people, the da'wat that you get from people, the respect that you get from people. That's what you're warathat. I accept that, warathatul anbiya. But the tahajjud that you have to do, the fasting that you have to do, the ibadat that you have to do, the tabattul that you have to do, the dhikrullah that you have to do. No, we're not waratha in that. We're not warathatul anbiya in that because that's too hard. I can't wake up in the middle of the night. That one, I'm exempt from that one. I have parcha. I have chukti. They love parchas, you know. When we were in Pakistan, everything was like, he's not there, parcha. Give the parcha. We have parcha for that. We don't need to wake up for tahajjud. We don't need to make dhikrullah. And this is why Hazrat Maulana Ilyas rahmatullah alayhi, he said, mashallah, there's a lot of dini idaras. And there's a lot of tahriks and tanzeems and, you know, programs that are taking place. He said, but unfortunately, very few of them are successful. Why? It's because they lack dhikrullah. They lack ikhlas. And ikhlas comes from dhikrullah. Hazrat Shah Abdul Qadir Raipuri rahmatullah alayhi used to say, har cheez zikrullah se. Everything comes from zikrullah. Everything is attained through dhikrullah. Our akabir, and our mashayikh that we read about, and that Allah has blessed them. A lot of the things that they were blessed in their time, they were blessed in their ilm, they were blessed in everything, is because they had this وَاذْكُرِ اسْمَ رَبِّكَ وَتَبَتَّلْ إِلَيْهِ تَبْتِيلًا. They would make and remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala abundantly, and they used to seclude themselves from muraqabah, seclude themselves for just taking time. The last advice that my Shaykh Hazrat Maulana Shah Hakim Muhammad Akhtar Sahib rahmatullah alayhi, he told me, last advice, he told me that Tameem, you will be going amongst the people. He said you should take that time out, read your munajat maqbool, read your wazifas, because every day if you dig out water from a well, eventually the water inside the well will dry up. If you're taking out water all the time from the well, that well will eventually dry up. And you need to give time for that well to replenish itself. And when does that water replenish itself? When you leave it without taking water out from it. And then automatically it replenishes itself. That is the meaning of tabattul. وَتَبَتَّلْ إِلَيْهِ تَبْتِيلًا means leave the well so it can replenish itself. Don't keep giving and giving and giving. Because when you keep giving without leaving it to replenish, without zikr, without tabattul, without muraqabah, then what happens? You keep digging from a well, what's going to start happening? You start taking out mud. And your words will start coming out dirty and murky. Maulana Jalaluddin Rumi, when he was writing the Masnawi, he told his Khalifa, Husamuddin, he says, Ay Husamuddin dare chahbandukun, sakht khak alud mi ayat sukhan. He says, Ay Husamuddin dare chahbandukun. He says, Oh Husamuddin, close now the lid of the well. You're writing the Masnawi? Close the lid of the well, because sakht khak alud mi ayat sukhan. He says, my words are coming out fake. I am forcing these words out. They're not coming from my heart. So close the top of this well so that the water will replenish itself again. Let Allah bring the words of the Masnawi. These words of the Masnawi is coming from Allah. Now, sakht khakalud mi ayat sukhan, the words are coming out very murky. Dare chahband kun. Close the top of the well so that the well can replenish itself. So that my words come from Allah. They don't come from my own self. When your words are coming from yourself, then their words will be murky. They'll be mixed with your own nafsaniyat. But when they come directly from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they will be mixed with the nur of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why reciting a portion of the Quran daily, making dhikrullah, the tasbihat, la ilaha illallah, ismul zat, whoever you have a connection with, take zikr. And your shaykh will tell you the specific method of making dhikr, or people that are connected with the effort of tabligh, mashallah, you have third kalima, and istighfar, and durood sharif, and the various other wazifas that they have, munajat maqbool, or hizbul azam, reading the du'as, and these type of things is very, very important for this. Hazrat says on page 65 that while you're making dhikr, there are certain sins which are more harmful than others. The salik should exercise greater caution in guarding himself from such sins. Some of the more destructive sins are enumerated below. Riya, to do any deed with the intention of being seen by people. Number 2, kibr, to think oneself to be great. This sin arises from a person being boastful or haughty due to possessing some worldly or dini excellence. Kibr of all types is sinful and spiritually destructive. Number 3, ujub. This is related to and sometimes arises from kibr, to think that you're better than anybody else. Ghibat, even futile speech causes the harm to nuraniyat of the heart. Therefore, it is necessary that the salik refrains from unnecessarily associating with people. His conversations with people should be limited to what is needed. Number 5, unlawfully focusing one's eyes, heart, or mind on غير mahram, man or woman, or child with lust. This is something that you have to make a lot of effort on. قُلْ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ يَغُضُّوا مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِمْ وَيَحْفَظُوا فُرُوجَهُم. Hazrat Wala Rahmatullahi said, he says, all the guna is bad. But the guna of the eyes, he said, ye dil ko satyanas karta hai. Dil ko satyanas karta hai. This nazar. Every sin a person does, his heart turns away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The qibla of the heart is always directed to Allah. And when a person commits a sin, his heart turns away from Allah ta'ala. He said, but when a person does bad nazari, his heart is 180 degrees away from Allah. His back is to Allah and his face is towards his ma'shuq. Mal'oon, ma'shuq. This is why bad nazari is something very, very worse out of every other sin, is this bad nazari. Why? Because it takes a person's heart completely away. Number 6, beja ghazab, unjustified or excessive anger, to confront others with a severe or harsh disposition. The Prophet ﷺ kana basaman dahakan. He was basam, dahak. He was always a person who he showed happiness. Let your gham be inside your heart and let your happiness be on your face. Some people have a lot of gham for the ummah, mashallah, mubarak. A lot of gham, a lot of fikr for the ummah. Let your fikr and your gham be in your heart. And let your happiness be on your face. This is not the sunnah of the Prophet. I have so much fikr for the ummah, so I'm going to have a terrible abus and qamtarira face on myself all the time. I'm going to be very angry. I'm going to be very sad. Why? Because I have the gham of the ummah. Have the gham of the ummah in your heart. The Prophet ﷺ, he was da'imul fikrati, mutawasilul ahzan. He was always thinking. He was always worried. He was always had fikr. Da'imul fikra. Mutawasilul ahzan. Laysa lahu rahat. Mentions about in the Shama'il, the Prophet was not ever in a state of ease. He was always thinking. He was always sad. But his face, he always had smile with the people. His gham was in his heart, but his akhlaq was in his face. لا تحقرن من المعروف شيئا ولو إن تلقى أخاك بوجه طليق. Don't think any deed to be insignificant, even if it might be smiling in the face of your brother. Smiling is a charity, right? So don't have this beja ghazab and this like I'm a very, very mutafakkir, very pious person. There are also certain forms of ghaflat that are more harmful than others. Namely, this refers to the ghaflat that is produced as a result of worldly relationships. Unnecessary mixing. Kathratul ikhtilati ma'al anam. Hazrat mentions that there's 4 usuls. MashaAllah, we learn this when we go out in the path of Allah, and we learn this in tasawwuf as well, that qillatul kalam, qillatul ta'am, qillatul manam, qillatul ikhtilatu ma'al anam, sleeping less, eating less, and sleeping less, eating less, and speaking less, and mixing with the people less. Unnecessarily mixing, unnecessarily making friends, unnecessary, hey man, let me get your number, man. Hey, let me get your number. Hey, let me mix it. And you're just connecting with people unnecessarily, building attachments unnecessarily. This is also something which leads to ghaflat. Unnecessarily making all of these connections, right? They call it social media, networking. I'm networking with people. You're networking with everybody, and everybody's following you on Facebook. This is how a person makes himself feel very happy, that I have this many friends on Facebook. I have this many followers on Twitter. I'm networking. All of that is ghaflat. And you have friends with everybody, and you're not friend with one Allah. Wallahi, if you're friends with everybody, and you're not friends with Allah, then you've not benefited anything. If everyone's your friend and Allah is not your friend, then nobody's your friend. Khaja Sahab mentions, Jab tu mera to sab mera, falak mera, zameen meri, aur agar ek tu nahi mera to koi shay nahi meri. If Allah is yours, everything is yours. And if you don't have Allah, then you have nothing. So these type of connections, brings a lot of ghaflat. Why? Because the heart will be repeatedly drawn to these worldly bonds. The heart will be drawn to these worldly bonds. A person who is going through this regimen, right? Now here he says, Hazrat says, there are two signs that indicate that one has attained nisbat-e batini. These are two signs that after making zikr of Allah Ta'ala, a person has achieved the nisbat. Number one, heart that is totally free from ghaflat, forgetfulness, constant remembrance, and naturally attentive towards Allah. Number two, obedience to Allah. Having a natural love for conforming to every aspect of the Shariah, be it ibadat, muamalat, morals, statements, actions. There should be a strong inclination and enthusiasm to act in accordance with the laws of Allah in every sphere of the Sharia. Hazrat says, my Shaykh Rahmatullahi used to say, if you want to know that you have a nisbat with Allah, don't look at yourself in the masjid. Look at yourself in Bandar Road. Bandar Road, yaad hai? Hazrat, Bandar Road, Pakistan. Mein. Hazrat says, okay, don't look at yourself how you're doing in the masjid or khanqa. Look at yourself in Bandar Road. If on Bandar Road you're acting like a bandar, then you don't have any nisbat with Allah Ta'ala. There's a place in Karachi, it's called Bandar Road. So Hazrat said, if on Bandar Road you're acting like a bandar, then you know that you don't have any nisbat with Allah Ta'ala. If you're in Bandar Road and your eyes want to float away and look at something which is inappropriate, and you feel this guilt in your heart, then this is a sign of nisbat ma'allah. The zikr is doing the job now. Your suhbat and your ilm is doing the job, that you're in a place and all of a sudden you have the opportunity to commit sin and you have this feeling of guilt and you have the feeling of sadness and you have this feeling of regret and you have this nafs al-lawama. Your nafs is reproaching you and your nafs is blaming you. Bro, don't look. Why are you looking? Don't look at that direction. And your eyes are turning itself away. This is a sign of nisbat with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, so you can read the things on your own. It just says some things about the importance of zikr. We'll go to Hidayah number 7, peace of mind. Hidayah number 7, peace of mind. He says, the dhakir, the one who makes dhikr, should refrain from anything that will disrupt his peace of heart or peace of mind. Peace of mind is a valuable treasure. And there are various factors that destroy one's peace of mind, especially for talib ilm. For tulabul ilm, the student of knowledge, should try to have peace of mind. Don't try to put too much responsibilities and these things, right? One of the things that salik should be careful is ruining one's physical health through indulgences. The health of the body and mind should always be protected and improved. There should be moderation in both consumption and abstention from food. One should not consume so much that it causes digestive problems. Neither should one reduce one's consumption to the point of bringing about physical weakness. Health is ruined by immoderation. When you eat food, eat something which is healthy. Right? Hazrat Haji Imdadullah Muhajir Makki Rahmatullahi, he said that this is Allah Ta'ala's machine. This body is Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala's machine. You have to take care of it. Otherwise, if you don't take care of this machine that Allah gave you, then you will be held accountable. You are making khiyanat of Allah Ta'ala's amanat. Our Hazrat Rahmatullahi and Shah Abdul Ghani Purpuri Rahmatullahi, these people, they would make warzish every day. Hazrat Shah Abdul Ghani Rahmatullahi, he was a wrestler. He used to know how to do kushti. And he was a wrestler. And Hazrat told us that his chest used to actually protrude out. And he said if you make a direct line, vertical line from his nose to his chest, it would come in a straight line like this. His chest used to be like this. And he used to know, lati, that stick fighting. Hazrat Shah Abdul Ghani Rahmatullahi, he used to do stick fighting and he taught it to Hazrat Wala and Hazrat Mu'abra al-Haqsab. And Hazrat says that my Shaykh taught me stick fighting and he would say, attack me. So we would attack Hazrat and then he would attack us, and he should teach us how to defend. He would make warzish. They were physical, they were athletic. They weren't so, you know. Ustad Ji is saying the dars and you're like this. Why? Why are you becoming like that? You don't have no blood flow. एक लड़का बेचारा हमेशा एहतिलाम होता था बेचारा. Every day he was just khalas. He would do qaylula khalas. He would be before Fajr khalas. His chaddis and his pajama was always hanging. Are, what's the matter with you? And this was susti. He didn't have quwwat. He was sust. To make warzish, to eat the proper food. This is something which is not good. This is not taking care of the machine. And Hazrat Thanvi Rahmatullahi alayhi, every single day after Fajr, Hazrat Thanvi would go for a walk. And I've seen even Hazrat Mufti Taqi Usmani Sahib, every day after Fajr, he would go for his walk while he's making his zikr. Hazrat isi tarah hai na? Hazrat Mufti Taqi Sahib, every day, fast walking. Namaz ke baad, every day, without naga, no missing. His tasbih haath mein, and he would be walking fast. And this is what gives that energy. And Hazrat, I think, is like 65, almost 70 years old, Mufti Taqi Sahib, but he's very jawad. So, this is very important for all the Tulabul Ilm. You have to make good habits from now, right? And do not allow yourself to be physically weak. Also, Hazrat says, a salik should not indulge in excessive sexual intercourse. Excess in this produces a physical weakness that particularly affects the heart and mind. And I say this with amanat, with haya, with amanat. I have to say this, that this excessiveness in, masturbation, istimna bil yad, which has become the disease. This will affect you, mentally. This will affect your heart. This is such a bad habit that it will not leave you, and it affects your mind. Hazrat Rahmatullahi told us from the aspect of Unani medicine, herbal medicine. For one drop of semen requires 70 drops of blood. 70 drops of blood require to make one drop of semen. Now imagine when you are taking out that semen, every time you get excited, you're taking out that semen. Every time you're excited, you're taking out that semen. Yep. What is this? Every time. Doesn't have to be every time you do that. And Hazrat Khwaja Sahib says, I forgot the poem. He said, this is like, high tide and low tide. You know what is high tide, low tide? In the beach, when sometimes the ocean comes out, high tide, and then the ocean goes in, low tide. He said the nafs and the desires of the nafs sometimes becomes high tide. You get so much sexual excitement. You want to take it out. Don't at that time, just leave it. It'll pass. Hazrat Khwaja Sahib says, it'll pass. And then it becomes low tide again. Then you completely forget. Turn your mind away. النفس لا تتوجه إلى شيئين في آن واحد. The nafs does not remain mutawajjih to two things at one time. Turn your attention away from that which is occupying your mind. I give you a question. If at that time you're high tide, high tide. You understood high tide, right? Somebody comes with a gun in your head right there. High tide goes low tide immediately. Does it go low tide or not? High tide immediately goes low tide. That shows the nafs la tatawajjahu ila shay'ain fi anin wahidin. The nafs does not become mutawajjih at two things at the same time. You have to make muraqabah. You have to use your mental power to turn your mind away from these things. Buddhist monks practice this. At least you can make nikah. Bichara Buddhist monk, he can't even make nikah. You at least have nikah. They use their mental power to guard themselves from these things. And they do warzish and they have quwwat. So you guys have to practice these things. Otherwise, this will be something that will make you weak. Your heart and your mind, you will not be able to remember. You will not be able to study. And this matter is directly connected with guarding the eyes. If you guard the eyes, you won't have a problem with the other one. قُلْ لِلْمُؤْمِنِ يَغُضُّ مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِمْ وَيَحْفَظُوا فُرُوجَهُمْ. First comes يَغُضُّ مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِمْ. That's muqaddam. If you don't do that, then you won't be يَحْفَظُ فُرُوجَهُم. You won't be able to guard your private parts because you're not guarding your eyes. First comes guarding the eyes, then comes guarding the private parts. And if you're married, Hazrat says, halal ko bhi zyada halal nahi karna chahiye. Don't do too much halal. Too much halal also is going to make you sick. And Hazrat Thanvi Rahmatullah mentioned the had. He said you should do it to the extent of necessity. Just like when you become extremely hungry, then you should eat. Similarly, when you become naturally, uncontrollably desirous of having marital relations, only then you should have marital relations. Not every 6 seconds. Go. A salik should only eat when he actually feels hungry. He should never overeat. A person should stop eating when he feels that he can still consume a morsel or two. Similarly, a salik should adopt moderation in sleep. Excessive sleep produces lethargy, yani laziness, while lack of sleep causes fatigue and tiredness. Another factor that ruins peace of mind is to crave delicious food. A similar factor is getting over-involved with beautifying one's external appearances and attire. This does not mean one should remain in soiled clothing and dirty clothing. Rather, simplicity along with cleanliness should be adopted. However, delicious foods and fine garments are also bounties from Allah Ta'ala. Therefore, if these are obtained without any hankering after them, that is without striving and putting forth great effort in obtaining them, then the salik should make use of these favors from Allah as long as there is no fear of pride or contempt for others entering the heart. The salik must be grateful to Allah Ta'ala for the bounties that He bestows. Greed for wealth, being engrossed in its accumulation and wasting it away in extravagance are all destroyers of peace of mind. A covetous person, haris, a person whose heart always yearns for more wealth, will always be absorbed in seeking wealth. The extravagant person, musrif, will be hindered by difficulty, worry, frustration after his wealth has been depleted. Such a person's gaze will then drift towards the wealth and the possessions of others. Making friends and enemies also wrecks one's peace of mind. Social gatherings of friends and acquaintances will occupy the time of the salik and create problems. Enemies will scheme to harm and frustrate him. It is imperative for the salik to refrain from all unnecessary acts which interfere with his peace of mind. However, adverse situations that are beyond his control should be taken in stride and patiently borne. Similarly, if by fulfilling a demand of the Sharia, the salik becomes the object of one's wrath, then resulting conflict will not be spiritually harmful and should be handled with patience. For example, if a gift is not accepted from someone who is eating haram wealth, thereby causing him to harbor enmity for the salik, this person's anger will have no spiritual consequence, and the salik should not be bothered by it. He should place his trust in Allah. Allah will assist. Any hardship or difficulty that comes his way due to upholding the commands of the Sharia should be considered a product of Allah's wisdom. He should be satisfied and submit himself to Allah. Having this attitude engenders great closeness and proximity to Allah. Hidayah number 8. Hidayah number 8 is ikhtiyari ghayr ikhtiyari umur. This is a very important chapter. This is a very, very important chapter. And I want to just explain it a little bit before I go into reading it. There's two types of things. One is ikhtiyari, one is ghayr ikhtiyari. Ikhtiyari means those issues and those matters in this world that are within your control. You have ikhtiyar. Ghayr ikhtiyari are those things which are not in your control. They're out of your control. They're beyond your control. So understand the very simple mas'ala, that those things which are within your ikhtiyar and control, worry about those things. The things that Allah put within your control and ikhtiyar, worry about those things. And the things that Allah did not put in your ikhtiyar, don't worry about them. A lot of times, we become worried, we become frustrated, we become mayus, we become despondent because we are worrying about things that are not within our ikhtiyar. For example, I've been making zikr for such a long time. I still did not see Allah Ta'ala in my dream. I've been reading Durood Sharif for such a long time. I still didn't see the Prophet ﷺ in my dream. I'm going nowhere. Okay, khalas, I give up. I throw in the towel. Now, this person is basing his suluk and he's basing his journey towards Allah on something which is not even within his ikhtiyar. Seeing a dream of Allah or seeing a dream of Rasulullah, that's not within your control. So you're worried about it, it's causing you unnecessary tension, and it's ruining your peace of mind, and slowly it makes you despondent and makes you fall off of the path. What is within your ikhtiyar? To make dhikr. What is within your ikhtiyar? To read Durood Sharif. What is within your ikhtiyar? To do your amal, to wake up for tahajjud. That which is within your ikhtiyar, do it. And that which is not within your ikhtiyar, don't worry about it. Another person says, oh, these khiyalat, all these worries and fantasies are coming in my mind. Dirty thoughts are coming in my mind. Those dirty thoughts, are they within your ikhtiyar or ghayr ikhtiyari? Sometimes thoughts are not within your ikhtiyar. They're not within your control. They come into your mind uncontrollably. Those thoughts that come into your mind uncontrollably, you are not held accountable for those thoughts. You're not held accountable for those thoughts that are not within your control. Understand? You are only held accountable for those thoughts that you bring about. And understanding this point will make it very, very easy. So 8th hidayah, volitional and non-volitional matters. Ikhtiyari and ghayr ikhtiyari. Volitional means that which is within your control. Non-volitional, that which is not within your control. Hazrat says that the salik should never neglect volitional matters, meaning matters that are within one's control. He should never neglect ikhtiyari things. In addition, he should not be concerned about ghayr ikhtiyari, meaning matters that are outside of his control. Even if the ghayr ikhtiyari matters are pleasant, he should not yearn to acquire them. And if they are unpleasant, he should not occupy himself in trying to ward them off. For example, concentration in salat, dhikr, tilawat are difficult, but they are still within one's ability. Concentration, every time your mind goes off, bring your mind back. Every time your mind goes off, bring your mind back. How do you bring your mind back? Concentrate over the words you are reciting. Make muraqabah and concentrate of the words. Think about the words. Think about the huruf. There are several ways of developing this concentration set in dhikr and in salat, such as contemplating that Allah is seeing me. Allahu hadiri, Allahu nadiri, Allahu ma'i. Allah is with me, Allah is watching me, Allah is Allah is accompanying me. Reflecting on the meanings of the words or focusing on each word to the extent that every word is being consciously pronounced. Since these actions are within man's ability, he should not neglect their acquisition and should exercise diligence in this regard. On the other hand, experiencing different feelings such as enjoyment, displeasure, distaste, dissatisfaction are not within one's control. Therefore, a salik should not be concerned if he does not experience enjoyment in salat, dhikr or tilawat, nor should he become despondent or frustrated by this lack of enjoyment. In namaz mein maza nahi aa raha, zikr mein maza nahi aa raha. Hazrat Haji Imdadullah, he said, one person said, Hazrat, main zikr karta hu, lekin zikr mein maza nahi aa raha. I'm making zikr, but I'm not enjoying the zikr. So Hazrat Haji Sahab said, he said, oh Zalim, he said, you're taking the name of such a great Zat. Is this a small ni'mat? Is this a small bounty that you are taking the name of Allah? This is the greatest bounty and this is the greatest blessing. Nor should he become despondent or frustrated by this lack of enjoyment. Because remember, a lot of people, why they practice religion, especially in America, right? You have the Sufis and the hippies. Like I mentioned last night, I don't know if anybody was there. There was an old lady I met in a coffee shop. She came up to me. She's like, oh, how are you? You look like a spiritual man. What are you? I said, I'm Muslim. I said, what are you? She said, I'm Sufi. I said, subhanAllah, you're not even Muslim. I said, oh, so you're Muslim? No, I'm not Muslim. She made that very clear. I'm not Muslim. I am Sufi. And I love Rumi. Because يَتَّبِعُونَ مَا تَشَابَهَ مِنْهُ. Right? Masnawi is all mutashabihat. You could just whatever you want. Ishq hai, sharab hai, ishq hai, everything. You find sharab, you find kebab, you find ishq, you find everything is there. Shabab bhi hai, kebab bhi hai, sharab bhi hai. Everything is there. And then they don't know what it means. They start enjoying it. Wine of love and intoxication. And I love you, you love me. We're a happy family. And that really, it gives them the... So, that a lot of people, they follow religion. A lot of people follow to get that lift. They think the religion is all about the spiritual experience. And there are some Muslims, Jahil Muslims, that fall into that thing. Hey, yaar, somebody told me, where's the spiritual experience? Where's the spiritual experience in Islam? So I told them, waking up for Fajr. That's the spiritual experience. Leaving your warm bed. Al-wudu'u inda al-makarih. Right? Al-wudu'u wa kathratul khuta ila al-masajid. Kathratul khuta ila al-masajid wa isbaghul wudu' ala al-makarih. Taking long walks to the masjid and making wudu in the cold, with cold water. This is the spiritual experience in Islam. And the enjoyment that comes from that comes later. But at the beginning, there's mujahada. وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا لَنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبُلَنَا. Those people that make mujahada, then we will guide them to our paths. So these experiences that you're looking for, like I said, those experiences that you're looking for, you can get that by smoking weed as well. And people do that. That's what they think spirituality is about. That's what they think religion is about. It's about a feeling. It's about a high. No, it's not about a feeling high. Sometimes religion is about not feeling good. Understand this. This was the most ajib and profound concept that I learned from my teacher, my Shaykh, was that I always thought feeling good is good and feeling bad is bad. I went to my Shaykh and we learned from him that feeling bad is good sometimes. And feeling good is bad sometimes. What do I mean when I say that? Like when people praise you, you feel really good, right? It's not good. That's bad for you. Your head is getting too big. Your ni'mats come from Allah. They don't come from you. You didn't do anything. But you feel good, right? When somebody praises you, you should feel bad. That feeling good is not good. And then when you see on the side, there's this beautiful girl, she's jogging, and you want to check her out, and you say, no, I'm not going to look. Does that hurt? Doesn't feel good, does it? But that's good. That doesn't feel good, but it's good. You feel depressed. You feel sad. You want to look at that pornography. Nobody's there. And it's just gushing you. It's pulling you. It's attracting you. And you're fighting it. And it's burning you. That burning is good. That depression is good. And Hazrat, he mentions. Hazrat mentions that through that daage hasrat hazar khaye hai. Hazrat says, daage hasrat hazar khaye hai. Tab kahi jaake unko paaye hai. In hasinon ki nazar bachane mein maine gham bhi bahut uthaye hai. Listen to that. Daage hasrat hazar khaye hai. I have suffered a lot of regret on my heart. Daage hasrat? What is daage hasrat? Hasrat wo na mukammal maza. That maza, that desire that is not fulfilled. The unfulfilled desire is called hasrat. Daage hasrat hazar khaye hai. Tab kahi jaake unko paaye. That's the only time that I achieved and attained Allah, when I suffered regret and I did not let my nafs look. I did not let my nafs enjoy. And I felt that pain. Daage hasrat is not enjoyable. Daage hasrat hazar khaye hai. Tab kahi jaake unko paaye hai. Only then did I find Allah, after suffering a lot of grief on my heart. In hasino ki nazar bachane mein maine gham bhi bahut uthaye. In hasino ki nazar bachane mein, in all of these beauties, in guarding myself from these beauties, have I suffered a lot of regret. Have I suffered a lot of grief. But in suffering that grief, I have attained Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this reminds us that that feeling of hardship, that feeling of gham, that feeling of dard, that feeling of pain, that is very good. Through that pain, your nafs is feeling pain, but your ruh is feeling very happy. Hazrat says, he says, is your nafs your friend or dushman? Is it your enemy or your friend, your nafs? Inna a'da aduwika nafsuka allati bayna jambayk. This is not a hadith. In Kashful Khafa, it mentions that this is not a hadith. Some people attribute it to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's not right. My Shaykh also mentioned that this is a hadith. This is not a hadith. In Kashful Khafa mentioned this is not a hadith. But it is a saying. It is correct. Inna a'da aduwika nafsuka allati bayna jambayk. Your worst enemy is that nafs which is between your side, right here. This nafs is your worst enemy. And it's always, that's why the Prophet says, وَلَا تَكِلْنِي إِلَى نَفْسِي طَرْفَةَ عَيْنٍ. وَلَا تَكِلْنِي, oh Allah, don't leave me to my nafs even for the blink of an eye. Because this nafs, if you leave yourself to the nafs for the blink of an eye, it'll attack you. The salik, similarly, wasawis of the mind are non-volitional, غير ikhtiyari matters. Thus, the salik should never be bothered by the random thoughts that enter in his mind without any ikhtiyari reflection, regardless of how evil these thoughts may seem. One time, Hazrat Mir Sahib, Damat Barakatuhum, he's Hazrat's khas khadim, Hazrat Ishaq Jameel Mir Sahib. He told Hazrat, he said, Hazrat, I can never become Allah wala, I can never become a pious person because I have all these dirty thoughts in my mind, I have all these bad thoughts in my mind, I have all these evil desires in my heart, I can never become Allah wala, ever. So Hazrat told him, he says that however much desires you have, the more evil desires you have, and you oppose those desires, the closer you'll become to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it comes in a hadith that when a person, man hamma bihasanatin, anyone who makes hum of a hasanat, falam ya'malha, kutiba lahu hasanatun kamila. There's a hadith. It's also, I think, in the Arba'in of Imam Nawawi. It's also mentioned in Riyadh al-Salihin that anyone who makes intention, hamma bihasanatin, falam ya'malha, he does a good deed, but he intends to do a good deed, but he doesn't do it. Allah will write him hasanatun kamila. And if he does it, kutiba lahu ashru hasanat. You guys remember that? If a person, he doesn't do it, he gets one full reward because he made intention of doing a good deed. That's the power of intention. If you make intention to do a good deed and you don't do it, Allah writes a good deed. And if you do it, Allah multiplies it by 10. However, when you, وَمَنْ هَمَّ بِسَيِّئَةٍ فَلَمْ يَعْمَلْهَا كُتِبَ لَهُ حَسَنَةٌ كَامِلَةٌ. And anyone who has a thought of doing something evil, but he does not do it, Allah writes for him a complete hasana. وَإِنْ عَمِلَهَا, and if he does it, كُتِبَ لَهُ سَيِّئَةٌ وَاحِدَةٌ. One sayya'ah is written for him if he does it. Look at the mercy of Allah. So now imagine if we look at this qaida, this is a qaida kulliyah. This is a general principle. If we look at this general principle, that if you have more evil thoughts and you oppose those evil thoughts, every evil thought that you oppose, you get one hasana. Allahu Akbar. Every evil thought that comes in your mind and you oppose that evil thought, you get one hasana. And it's coming on your own. You're not bringing the thought in your mind. Right? So as long as you don't implement that bad thought, as long as you don't implement that bad thought, thought comes of ghibat, thought comes of hasad, thought comes of jealousy, but you think and then you say astaghfirullah and you fight it off and you don't do it, Allah writes one good deed for you. So this struggle that we're going through with the nafs, that hum, that huzn, that fighting, that mujahada, that coming, that going, there's great ajr written in there. Now listen to this. This tasteful, non-volitional matters, especially stray thoughts, are eliminated by completely ignoring them. Hazrat Thanvi Rahmatullahi said, he said, Wallahi wasawis ka koi ilaj nahi hai, magar adam iltifat. He said, Wallahi, he took qasam. There is no cure to waswasa. Some people have all these wasawis. There is no cure to waswasa except ignoring them. Ignore them. There's no other. Like a barking dog. Your waswasa is like a dog that's barking. Bark, bark, bark. You just don't fight it back. And it'll bark itself to sleep. And it'll stop barking. But if you're going to go and start barking back at the dog, what's going to happen? It's going to attack you. It's going to jump on you. So the waswasa is like a dog barking. If you keep fighting with it, with these thoughts, trying to answer those questions, and a lot of times, these stray questions come in our mind, and we start trying to answer those questions. What happens? They're going to overpower us. Just ignore them. By consciously striving to eliminate them, these thoughts will only increase, thus causing great frustration to the salik. The best remedy for stray thoughts is to renew one's concentration on the act of worship at hand and totally ignoring these thoughts. Obedience to Allah is also within one's ikhtiyar, volition. Therefore, the salik must not be neglectful or lacking in this regard. The following matters are beyond one's ability to volitionally acquire. Pleasant dreams. This is beyond your ability. You shouldn't be seeking out pleasant dreams. Acceptance of du'as. Spiritual ecstasy. Bad dreams. Despondency. Reduction in rizq. Ecstasy in dhikr. Seeing visions. Illness, etc. The presence or absence of these conditions and states should not be the concern of Salih. Hazrat Mahaji Imdadullah rahmatullah alayh, he says, put these halat and kayfiyat on top of the shelf and forget about them, because there is no value or significance of these feelings and these thoughts and these halat and kayfiyat in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All it's about is making effort and mujahada. Everything else, put it on the shelf. Forget about these kayfiyat and halat, and I feel like this, and I feel like that, and I feel like I'm on cloud 9, and I feel like this is not what this path is about. Whatever is acquired non-volitionally, even if it's detestable and bad, is not sinful. Whatever comes about, and it's not ikhtiyari, then it is not bad at all. Sins that are within one's capacity to commit are what must be shunned. Sins are the thing that must be shunned and avoided. For example, unintentionally falling in love with somebody is non-volitional and therefore not sinful. If your eyes fall upon something you're not supposed to see and it is not within your ikhtiyar, you had no control over it, and then love of that person comes inside of your heart, you are not held accountable for that. And inshallah there will be ajr for that. There comes in one hadith, it's narrated in Jami al-Saghir. Hakimul Ummah also mentions, Man ashiqa fa'affa thumma man ashiqa fa'affa wa katama thumma mata fahuwa shaheed. Hazrat Thani mentions this, and is also narrated in Jami al-Saghir. And Zarkashi, he makes this hadith a sahih hadith. Man ashiqa, a person who falls in love, غير اختياري, it's not within his ikhtiyar. Suddenly it happened, right? Maybe he saw somebody, he was walking and the sight of somebody came in front of him. He fell in love with that person. Then he hid that from everybody. فَكَتَمَ, and he hid that from everybody. فَمَاتَ, and then he died with this inside of his heart, not exposing it to anybody. فَهُوَ shaheed, he dies in a state of shahada. Right? So because this is a matter which is غير اختياري. But if a person is frivolously speaking with the غير mahram girl, talking to somebody on Facebook, looking at her, deliberately listening to her voice, meeting with her, fantasizing about her, all of these are within your control and it's sinful. And you should abstain from it. By not striving against committing sins, one becomes sinful and the heart becomes darkened. You have to strive against not committing sins. Okay? So this is basic, the overview of the ikhtiyari, ghair ikhtiyari. Did everybody understand that? Okay, so let's have a quiz now. Okay? Seeing dreams, is it ikhtiyari or ghair ikhtiyari? So should you worry about it? What if I see the Prophet ﷺ in my dream? Is that something good? Yes, it's mahmood, but it's not maqsood. It's mahmood, yani it's good, but it's not maqsood, meaning your objective. This is how it should be. Feeling enjoyment in zikr, is this ikhtiyari? No, it's ghair ikhtiyari. So should you be concerned about it? What if I really, forgive for using this word, I really hate making zikr, it's very difficult for me. What should I do? Continue ikhtiyaran, continue doing it, and don't worry about the feeling. The feeling comes and goes, right? Good. Number 9, hidayah number 9, matters of caution. Matters of caution. Nowadays, there are many customs that have come about. Some of these customs are in total conflict with the Sharia, such as making tawaf around graves, kissing graves, spreading garments over graves, taking vows on graves, etc. Other practices are unlawful because they are accompanied by sins, such as urs, sama, milad, etc. And these are mixing of men and women, right? There was a Mawlud function in our locality. And there was a Shaykh who also, he that's in the locality, he accepts and he says that Mawlud is a good thing. So some youth, he asked them, where are you going? So they said, we're going to the Mawlud, we're going to the Milad, the Milad program. So then the Shaykh said, you're not going to the Milad program. He said, and he's the person who accepts the whole action and everything. He said, you're not going to the Milad program, you're going there to check all the girls, isn't it? Tell me the truth. He's like, Eid Milad al-Nabi, and you're doing Eid Milad al-Nafs? You're talking about Eid Milad al-Nabi, and then you're doing Eid Milad al-Nafs? Come on, man. Seriously. Even the Shaykh, who he had accepted that is something, he knew exactly why the youth are going there. Right? Because everybody, get together, hold hands, sing Kumbaya. The evils and the harms of these customs have been explained in the books. Certain practices are erroneously believed to be integral parts of sainthood, and thus are branded as bid'ah by the Sharia. Even if there are no corrupted beliefs held regarding these practices, they still fall in the category of worldly matters, such as amaliyat, dealing with charms and talismans, and so on and so forth. Such practices are permissible if they are not accompanied. Some practices are permissible if they are not accompanied by any corrupt beliefs, such as reciting the shajara. In actuality, this is making dua to Allah through the wasila of the names of the illustrious awliya, making tawassul, supplication through the medium of the names of the great and pious personalities, is supported by the sunnah. However, the permissibility of tawassul will no longer remain if any corrupt belief is held in regards to the recitation of the shajara. If it is believed that by reciting these distinguished names, the very attention of these awliya will be directed to the supplicator, then such a belief is incorrect due to having no origin or basis in Islam. The prohibition of ascribing such fallacious beliefs falls within the scope of the following ayat. Another point to understand, brothers and sisters, in America, in the society that we're living in the time that we're living in, we have to يُرَبِّ النَّاسِ مِنْ صِغَارِ الْعِلْمِ قَبْلَ كِبَارِهِ. We have to build the people from the small stages, learning the basics, learning the fundamentals of ibadat, mu'amalat, mu'asharat, akhlaq, aqaid. These are the things that people should be focusing on. And they're focusing on types of things that they have really, a person is going to these types of programs and he doesn't even know how to make istinja properly. A person is involved in certain practices and he doesn't even know how to pray properly. A person is involved in certain gatherings and talking about talking about being an activist, and a person doesn't even know how to be active in his prayer. He doesn't know how to be active. He hasn't even discharged his zakat. He doesn't know how to discharge the zakat. He doesn't know how to pray. He doesn't know the masail of fasting or the masail of namaz. So we need to come as Muslims, we need to become practical. You have that cultural type of certain things that we bring with us from our countries, but in reality, the situation that we're in this country, and the youngsters should also, the young scholars and the other people should also take into consideration, we need to come back on iman and amal. This is the most important thing for us right now. All these other types of, look at even the names, Sama and Urus and Milad. What are these things? You won't find any of the names of these things in Hadith. Sama, Urs, Milad, Nazar Niyaz, Fatiha Khani, all these other, the names of these things don't even come in the Hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. So we need to come back to the basics, focus on those things of Iman and Aman. And in the 10th Hidayah, last and final, Nasihat for men and women. Some men and women, after becoming murids, do not concern themselves with self-reformation. And this is that basic, the bid'ah type of Sufism, where they think they're part of some Sufi tariqah, and their concern is not purification of the heart. And this is something very important for us to understand, that the whole purpose of this whole discussion, the path to perfection, is how do we purify our hearts from those things which are against Allah Ta'ala's pleasure, and inculcating within ourselves those things which are in Allah's pleasure. Ridding ourselves of akhlaqi radila, evil qualities, and adorning oneself with the good qualities. Some necessary advice regarding this will be given below. However, the elaboration of these matters will be found in details in the book of Deen. Nasiha for men in general. Associate frequently with the ulama and ask them about Deeni rulings pertaining to one's daily life. Just like you go in the matters of business, you go to people who are well versed in business. In matters of your car, you go to a mechanic. In health matters, you go to a doctor. And in spiritual matters, you should go to the ulama and the mashayikh. This is common sense. But the thing is, in matters of medicine, we go to a doctor. In matters of cars, we go to a mechanic. But now in America, it's a whole different dynamic. In matters of deen, we ask an engineer. In matters of deen, we ask somebody who doesn't even have. If I sit here and talk to you about engineering, how unnecessary and how foolish will I be? I'm not even qualified in that. What am I going to talk to you about engineering? Or I come and sit here and start talking to you about quantum physics or sociology or political science. And this is exactly what's happening in America. Political science major is talking about fiqh. Where did you learn fiqh? You're a political science major. What are you talking about fiqh? You don't know the head or the tails of fiqh. Or you're talking about, is this hadith sahih? Well, you can't even spell sahih. You spell sahih with a sin. Is this hadith sahih? One person came up to me and he says, Shaykh, I think the hadith that you read is da'if. I said, oh, you studied hadith? I said, I just asked him that question. I said, you've studied hadith? So he's like, no, but I know that there's sahih hadith and da'if hadith. I said, what type of da'if hadith is this hadith that I read right now? Because there's many types of da'if hadith, right? There's many types of da'if hadith. Because da'if hadith, if it's muta'addad turuq, al-turuq yuqawi ba'duhu ba'dan, and it comes to rutbatul hasan. I said, have you read that qaida? Have you read that usul? He doesn't have anything to say. I said, don't go and try to throw usul at somebody when you don't know what you're talking about. Similarly, I say the same. I give the same advice to myself. If I don't know anything about a topic, for example, history or geography or something, then I shouldn't talk about it. Just stay within the domain. And for فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. I love our respected doctors in the community. They are a pride and a joy for us that we have them, that when it comes to our physical matters, we can go to our doctors. When it comes to, for example, matters of law, we go to our lawyers. This is a blessing. The ummah is a diverse ummah. Everybody can't be a scholar of deen. We have scholars in law. We have scholars in medicine. We have scholars in political science. We have scholars in history. And Allah made all these various different types of people because we're a ummah together. The various different diversities that we have, we work together, and that's what makes an ummah. So we should take from one another in a very positive way, and by this we're complementing each other. We're not avoiding and going against each other. And read authentic Deeni books like Beheshti Zewar and others, and act in accordance with what you learn. Do not wear un-Islamic clothing. Wearing pants that hang below the ankles, clothing that imitates the disbelievers, silk clothing, or bright feminine colors are all sinful. Dress Islamically. Just Islamically, what does that mean? You understand? Because if you see the Turkish people, have you seen the way the Turkish people dress? They wear pant and shirt. Is he un-Islamic? He's not un-Islamic. That's the way that their dress is. Somebody asked Hazrat Khan Rahmatullahi that a British man, he wears coat patnoon. This was in colonial times in India, that the ulama said that an Indian Muslim in India should not wear coat patloon, because you're dressing like you're colonialist. You're dressing like the person who's subjugated you, because people had an inferiority complex. So if they wanted to be cool, they would dress like, Tom, Dick, and Harry. So this is the fatwa that ulama had given in India in that time, that don't wear coat patloon in India. There's no need for that. This is Darul Islam. Why you dress like kuffar? But look at this understanding. Hazrat Thanvi in his fatwa, he mentioned, this question came. He said, there's a British man, he accepted Islam. He wears coat patloon. Hazrat said, there's nothing wrong with that. That's his dress. He's a British man. What is he going to do? Wear kurta shalwar? British man is going to wear kurta shalwar kameez? He's British. He's a white man. Yes, the extent that he should do is awfirul luha wahfu shawarib, and a person should have modesty, and a person should cover his head at least, which is a sign of Islam, and various things that give him the sign of a Muslim. So we have to make clarification of that in certain places there's specific dress. We can't require everybody, for example, to wear sherwani, right? Can't expect everybody to wear a pakol. This is something that's particular to a specific people. And as long as a person also adopts the clothing of the salihin, this is also in regards to Islamically means the clothing of the pious people of that place. Also, do not shave or cut the beard. However, it is permissible to trim the portion of the beard that exceeds a fist length. It is not permissible to cut the beard to less than a fist length. The hadith is narrated in Bukhari that Khaliful Mushrikeen, Awfirul Luha Wahfu Shawarib, and Hazrat Ibn Umar radiallahu used to grab his beard, and anything which would go beyond the fist, he would cut that. Abstain from all customs that are in conflict with the Sharia, regardless of whether it is a worldly or religious custom. For example, you should abstain from un-Islamic customs that are pertaining to events such as Mawlud and Fatiha, Urs, and certain marriages that have various different types of customs, circumcision gatherings. I don't know about that one. Feeding guests for the sake of reputation, Tija, Satwa, Chaliswa, these various types of khatams, Muharram, Shabi Barat, firecracker night, and all these different types of things. They have these different things, and they make it part of religion, as if it's a religious custom. Marriage, remember, what is saying the marriage, walima, as long as it's a separated gathering, there's not music, there's not bhangra, then right to the break of dawn, and all these other types of things, and it's jais for you to go. Right? When it's talking about those specific customs that have any type of un-Islamic things in it. And if it doesn't have any Islamic things, un-Islamic things, you can attend. Do not participate in fairs, shows, or similar amusements, and do not allow your children to attend such functions either. Do not give your children enough money to spend in nonsensical and evil practices. Do not allow them to play with fireworks or with toys upon which there are pictures of people or animals. One very important thing, there are certain fairs and shows which are okay. For example, you take the kids to the aquarium, you take the kids to the zoo, but there's specific things. I'll tell you what happened. When I read this, I said, what is Hazrat mentioning here? This is weird. And the situation came about. The situation came about. I have my kids, and I took them to a specific place for amusement. And there was a guy and a girl. The girl is sitting here. The girl is sitting on the lap of the guy. And he's sitting in the lap, and they're making out like there's no tomorrow. And I got my kids and my family, and we're walking, and there's no other way to go, and they're sitting right in the direction. And I'm like, what am I doing? And I just literally have to cover my kids' eyes, what's happening to the world? And you're taking your kids to a place like this, and you have such filthiness like this, literally these shameless guys, a guy and a girl, sitting in his lap, and they're making out like there's no tomorrow, and my kids are with me. This was something I felt so bad that I try to take them in a different direction, but when kids see that, then they become affected. They become affected emotionally, and they get scarred in such a way that it won't be. So basically, wherever you take them and the places you take them, it should be a place of family where they will not be affected by any types of these negative influences. Beware of that. Guard your tongue from ghibat and abusive language. Perform the 5 daily salat with jamaat every day to the best of your ability. Do not deliberately cast your gaze upon women or young beardless boys. Right? Why it says young beardless boys is because pedophile is another sickness which exists in the community. Right? Certain people have different types of temperaments. Some people like men, some people like women. Some people like young boys, some people like. There's various different sicknesses. Wherever you feel that the nafs is pulling you in that direction, have fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and run away from there. If you find that in yourself, this is a sickness, this is a problem, this is a sexual perversion, you should guard yourself, run away from that place. You should not be teaching children Quran. Anybody who is a teacher of Quran, if you feel an inclination towards young boys, if you feel an inclination towards young children, have fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This child molestation we're talking about, I know these topics are very difficult to talk about. It's very difficult for me to talk about these things, but this exists in the community. Don't think that it's okay. Do not think that it's okay that you can touch a child. It is not okay. Do not touch a child unnecessarily. If you have this tendency, watch your nafs. Be aware of yourself. Catch yourself. Make muhasabah of yourself. If you feel that sexual inclination, run away from there. Do not take the job as a teacher of maktab. Do not teach children. Do not teach Quran. Go. Rather work taxi. It's a very honorable way of living. For a person to work taxi, he is working hard and earning a halal living. It is better for you to do that and earn a haram living where you're putting your nafs in danger at all times and you're ready to ruin the life of a person. Do you know what's the sentence of a person who does child molestation? What's the sentence? Life sentence. A person who molests a child, he gets life sentence. Do you know why? It's because you destroy the life of a person. In the community, believe it or not, 30 to 40% of young girls and young children in the Muslim community are sexually molested. Read the statistics. The statistics will drive you crazy. I have children as well. I do not put my children alone with somebody to teach them Quran. Ever. Never. Never, ever. Don't put your children alone. Don't put your trust in the Maulwi Sahib. Ever. I'm a Maulwi Sahib in front of you. Don't put your trust in me. Don't. Don't put your trust in the Qari Sahib. Ever. If the madaris can have video surveillance, have video surveillance. I'm not putting blame on anybody. But the nafs is alive. The nafs is alive. And this disease is alive. And when that video surveillance is there, because sometimes we become forgetful of Allah. Alam ya'alam bi anna Allah yara? No, la na'alam. La na'alam bi anna Allah yara. We forget. But na'alam bi anna hadha al-video yara. We know that the video is watching me. We forget that Allah is watching me. Let the video be there, that it's watching you at all times. And the screen is right in the office of the principal. You're going to touch a child, you're going to get taken into account. And in a community, if a person is caught with any molestation, kick him out and let it be known. Because he's going to go somewhere else, and somewhere else, and somewhere else. And this is a very, very severe disease. It does not cure itself. It doesn't cure itself. Let me ask you a question, and everybody that's here. If a person likes women, can he change himself to like men? It doesn't work that way. You can't change yourself. If you like children and boys, can you change yourself so easily? You can't. It is not an easy thing. That is what turns you on. That is what turns you on. And San Francisco State University, brothers and sisters, why I speak about this? Because no Maulwi is going to speak about this. This Maulwi is going to speak about it. Because my Maulwi spoke about it. Right? There was a man who came in a psychology class in San Francisco State. And he came in with his dog. And he said, this is the only friend that I have that I can become intimate with. I cannot become intimate with anybody else in this world. This is my friend, and this is the only thing that I can become intimate with. I can't be intimate with a woman, I can't be intimate with a man, with a child, with nobody. This is the sicknesses, and that was seen as something very normal. It was a psychology class. That's freedom. Free. Everybody's free. Free to do whatever you want to do. No, you're not free to do whatever you want to do. You're free to do what is within the boundaries of the Sharia. Anything which is kharij of the Sharia, you're not allowed. Don't even think about it. So, brothers and sisters, when it mentions these things, this is not perversion. Perversion is doing this action, not speaking about it. And we have to understand, again, if you have this tendency, get help. If you have a desire to sit with children alone, some people do this. The sickness has gotten really out of hand. They sit children in their lap. They sit children in their lap. They give candy to children. They make friends with children. You don't need to make friends with children. Our Hazrat Rahmatullah alayhi inside the khanqa, he would not let, he sees somebody, he's talking to the kid. Oh, hi, come here, come over here. Why are you smiling? Why are you saying hi to this kid? Why are you making so khushamad? Am I your Shaykh or he's your Shaykh? Why did you come here? What did you come here for? Why are you talking to kids? Doesn't make sense. You're a grown man. It's like a 45, 50-year-old man. And he's sitting and he's talking with kids in the khanqa. There's something wrong with that. And a person himself sometimes doesn't realize. I'm sitting and having conversation with a 10-year-old kid. Why? Well, how is it that you get along with a 10-year-old kid and you're a 50-year-old man? Sharam karo behaya. You're a 50-year-old man. You don't get along with other 50-year-old men. You're getting along with a 10-year-old kid. There's something there. He doesn't know it himself because the nafs is pulling him towards a direction, and right when the time is right, then the nafs will catch him. He doesn't even know it himself. Khud usko pata nahi hai ki where the nafs is taking me. I think this is a very nice kid. आपको देखकर खुदा याद आता है. खुदा याद आता है. आपको देखकर खुदा याद आता है. And giving him hugs, taking him. You have to go for 40 days with us. Come in Jamaat with us. Putting him in khas khidmat. Be very, very aware that the trick of the nafs. Hazrat Khaja Sahab said, Bharosa kuch nahi is nafsa ammara ka e zahid. Bharosa kuch nahi is nafsa ammara ka e zahid. Farishta bhi ye ho jaye to usse badguma rehna. Farishta bhi ye ho jaye to usse badguma rehna. There is no bharosa, no trust and guarantee on this nafs. O zahid. Farishta bhi ye ho jaye. If this nafs becomes like a farishta as well, to usse badguma rehna. Always be badguman of the nafs. No, I don't trust you. No, don't be alone. Forget women. You're not supposed to be alone with women anyways. In other situations as well. Do not listen to music and singing, which is another issue altogether. We won't go into the details. Do not go to your shaykh to request ta'weez or talisman for every situation that arises. Rather, go to him seeking to gain the deen from him. However, there is no problem in asking him to make dua for you. Also, never believe that your shaykh is perpetually aware of your condition. He's insan. He's not alimul ghaib. This is incorrect aqidah. This is shirk to start thinking that your shaykh knows exactly wherever you are and whatever you're thinking. That's Santa Claus. He knows when you are sleeping. He knows when you're awake. So be good for goodness sake. You know, he might put you on his list, come down the chimney. That's Santa Claus, man. Never believe that the shaykh is perpetually aware of your condition. That's only for Santa Claus. Do not study any book of tasawwuf that has not been described to you by your shaykh. Right? Sometimes you read certain books. You should take guidance from your shaykh about certain books. Otherwise, it might be over your head. It might misguide you. You might misunderstand it. Never enter into discussions regarding taqdeer and predestination. Imam Ali radiyallahu anhu, Sayyidina Ali ibn Abi Talib, karramallahu wajhahu, he mentioned that this taqdeer and predestination, it is a dark road. Do not go down that road. And it is a deep ocean. Do not enter into that ocean. Otherwise, you will drown. This is a sir of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah knows the details of it. Abstain from bribery and riba. All forms of riba, interest, in interest is only in the most common form of riba. Abstain from all transactions that conflict with the Sharia. If you go to visit your Shaykh, do not disturb him. If he is engaged in any activity, enter in his presence when the opportunity presents itself. Study the books of Ta'lim al-Talib, Ta'lim al-Din, Jaza'ul A'mal, and so on. Inshallah, we'll end there. May Allah Ta'ala give us tawfiq to implement what has been said. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. This is the basic 10 points. Some of the other points that we left out, inshallah, you can do on your own. We just wanted to do an overview of the book. We ask Allah Ta'ala to accept this recitation, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept this gathering. Subhanakallahu wa bihamdika. Nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.